Okay, so guys, thanks for joining today's session, and today is the 11th day. And today's agenda is last time we have started the VPCS, and today we are going to look at how to create web applications and understand its structure. We will look at how to create a CRUD application using the BO in the business objects, how to create a parent-child relationship means if we do have business objects, how to maintain the relationship and how to fetch the databases on the parent data. And then we will also look at how to create list of values, dependent list of values. And we will look at how to use service connections to call external APIs and fetch the data on a table component. We will look at how to call integrations. If you have developed any integration in the integration cloud, how to call that one, what are the variables and their scopes, how to use dialog boxes, how to use JavaScript, what is the client-side validation, how to perform client-side validation, and business rules we have already executed last time. And then we will look at how to create a editable table which will allow us to perform the inline editing. So in the last session, we have covered the remaining part of the integration, and we have started the VBCS, wherein I have explained the VBCS, what Visual Builder is, how it can help you to develop web and mobile applications. We have covered the navigations of the Visual Builder, like the application settings and then certificates. We have covered the backend services, and then we have seen how to create business objects and how to create business rules. So guys, do you have any question from the last session? Anyone, any question? Please do let me know.
Yes, Ankur, I have few questions.
Please.
My first question is I'm talking about HCM adapter. Only HCM adapter will only accept the DAT file only, or will accept CSV and
so this is not specific to the HCM adapter. If you want to perform, and maybe the HCM guy who is there in the group or in the session, they can clarify. When you try to use HCM data loader, okay, independently from the HCM, I hope it accepts only .dat file in a particular format to upload the data. So the same kind of file you need to upload using the HCM adapter too.
Okay, and related to same HCM adapter, we need to read and write. You have only read these files, but you have not written, and you have accepted zip file. So we need to read and write zip files, or
No.
And one more question: in which scenario we need to upload data in UCM?
In UCM.
Actually, I'm reading one Oracle documents. So I am finding some. I find some that they are first reading and then writing files in zip files. That's why I'm asking.
So basically, let's suppose you have one database, okay, wherein all the employees are uploaded somehow, and then you upload that data into the into the HCM. So what you can do, you can first read the data from the database. Let's suppose it's in the ATP database, okay. Then you can use the ATP adapter to fetch all the records, and then you can create a file, that file on the stage file location using the stage file action. Actually, we have seen that how to use stage file action to create the files, okay. So first you can create a file on the staging location from the data which is residing on the ATP database. And once your file will be created, you can zip it using the stage file action again, which we have seen while we have used the ERP adapter. And then you can read that zip file from the stage file and upload into the HCM. Since I already had that zip file, so I read that zip file from the FTP directly and then upload it into the HCM. But you can, if you have the source system from where you want to read the data and then create a zip file, you can do that too.
Okay. And one more question. I did integration for supplier and this workers. We are means it's run successfully. but I am unable to
Yes,
upload data in
I
Fusion.
told you. I told you, right?
Yes. But I have tried so many times. I have taken only one field, just supplier name and uploaded. But
Hmm.
they are giving the error that error on table POZ supplier int column standard industry class. The field in data file exceeds maximum length. I
Okay,
don't know
so
why.
I'll tell you. Okay, so you first try to create a supplier from the ERP itself and see what error you are getting. If you are able to create the supplier from some sample data, try that sample
Okay.
data via the integration approach too. It might be possible
And
there's some validation while you create the suppliers from the ERP directory.
does anyone have this any test template to so that we can check directly? Since I am talking about any other participants. And last question, Ankur. We have any outbound connection or integration to get data from Fusion?
So you are saying you want to get the data from the Fusion, is it?
Yes,
So
exactly.
you can do that too, right? So you can use the ERP adapter. Let's suppose you want to fetch the suppliers from the ERP.
Mhm.
Okay. So what you can
Mhm.
do, you can simply drop that ERP adapter as an invoke, and then you can call any business objects to get the data. So I have shown you different operations while I have configured the ERP adapter. You can use the same ERP adapter to get the data.
Mhm.
And one more thing, let's suppose the ERP adapter is not enough capable, the data which you need it. Then what you can do, you can use the ERP REST APIs to get the data, and you have to create a REST connection and then use the REST API. So let's say suppliers,
Mhm.
Oracle ERP suppliers REST APIs. Okay. So you can search the REST APIs of the ERP and you can use that APIs directly. Let me just go to the latest release. And here you see, we do have the
Mhm.
suppliers API, which will be used to, uh, let's suppose purchase orders only. Okay. For example,
Mhm.
let's suppose
Mhm.
you want to get the purchase orders via the REST API. So you can create a REST connection with the base URL of the ERP, and then you can use this API to get all the purchase orders. It's just an example. You can use any of the API. First, try to use the ERP adapter. If ERP
Mhm.
adapter does not have the functionality which you want to achieve, then only go with the REST API solution.
And final, today I was just inserting data into Visual Builder, and I am getting error that first of enable logging.
I will come to
Just
that. Yes.
okay. Thank you. Thanks for my.
Okay. Now let's get started, guys. Last time we have created this business object called employee, and one thing, right? We have created this object validator, email validator, which was used to check if email ID exists or not. And earlier it was not working. The problem was we kept the condition like this: employee address not equals to blank, but it should be like this, then only it will work. Now we can simply go ahead and then test it. Go to the data, try to upload some data here. Let's say 19 at a.com. Oh, sorry, we don't need to put email address actually. Cancel and try again. 19, let's say Ankur, Jan, and then NCA, and then address. Here you see bad request, email address should not blank. So if you have applied the validation at the object level, the error you will see at the bottom of the dialog box. But let's suppose you have applied the field level validator, then it will be inline. Here you see 12 add row. Here you see this is the inline message because this age we have created field trigger on the age level, hence it is visible on the, it is the inline message. But if you put any validation at the object level, then the message will be visible here. Now let's try to create our web application now. Now, when we create a application, the Visual Builder application, you can create multiple web application inside a single application. So it can be a collection of multiple web applications. So in order to create one web application, a VB application must exist. And here go to the web application and click on a web application. Here you can give any application name, let's say tutorial app. So there are two navigation styles. One is none and the second is tabbed one. When you select this tabbed one, you will be allowed to create tabs, and such kind of VB application will be created here. Let's try with this none. You can provide the label of all the tabs which you wanted to create. So, but let's use this none tutorial app and then click on a create button. So once you provide a name of the web application and you click on a create button, the web application will be created, and there's a structure of the VB application will be created automatically. Here you see this is your application root. So this is your application level tutorial app, which is this is the name of your web application. Under that application, you have three subfolders called flows, resources, and then root pages. If you expand flows, under flows, this is the main flow. So by default, a main flow will be created when you create a web application. And under a flow, you will see another page main. This is a main start. So by default, a flow main will be created and default page main hyphen start will be created. So main represents the flow name, and then hyphen, and then start represents the page. So the main hyphen start is a page where you can drag and drop different components to build your UI. So now every web application is a collection of a multiple flows, and then under flows you have the pages. So this is your application, this is your flow, and this is your page. If you want to create more flows, you see these flows and then click on the plus button, and here you see create flow. You have to enter the ID, let's say admin, create, and here you see the one flow has also been created with name admin, and by default the admin hyphen start page will be created also. This will be created automatically. If you want to create a new page, you can simply click on this plus button. Here the nomenclature will be like this is your flow ID, and then you can provide any name, let's say another page, like this. So another page will be created under that main flow. In a flow, you can create subflows as well. You need to click on this plus button, and then under that flow, you can create the subflows as well. A flow represent a module, you can say. Let's suppose you are creating a one web application, and under a web application, you may have a different module. A flow represent a one module. It can be your admin module, it can be your leave management module, it can be your reimbursement module, it can be travel module, anything. So for each and every module, you can create a separate flow, and then in a single flow, you can create different subflows too. So this is your app level, this is your flow level, this is your page level. So there are three scopes as well: application scope, flow scope, and then page scope. So if I collapse that, and we have one resources folder as well. Under the resources, you may have a different static components. Like the components, you can upload custom components using this plus button. You can create the CSS files. By default, app.css file will be created. You can start putting the CSS cascading style sheet to beautify your pages. You can upload the images. By default, you will see favicon-dark.ico. There are two images there. If you want to upload more images, you can upload more images from your drive. JavaScript, if you want to create any JavaScript file, you can do it here. Strings is for internationalization. If you want your application to support multiple languages, you can create that too via that strings. So you have to create different strings for each and every language. Roots. So by default, a page called shell. will be created. A shell is nothing, it is a template of all the pages. So here, this is your template. You see, this contains the header and then footer. So this header and footer, so this shell will be applied for each and every page. Here you see my application about. If you open this admin start page, you can see my application and then this is the header. So this my application and this, I mean the header and then footer is coming from this shell page. If you want to create a different shell, you can do that. So this is your application structure. So let me just close everything here. Now let's come to that. Let's open one page, main start. When you open a main start page, okay, so you can collapse the navigation from here by just clicking on it. So the navigation will be collapsed and then enabled. Okay, let me just collapse that. So if you open any page, you will see the page designer, you will see the actions, event listener, different tabs. You will see the components palette, you will see the structure, you will see different other options as well, live design code, you will see the properties and other few navigations as well, options as well. So components, it's a main important palette here. So components are nothing, it is the Oracle Jet components I mentioned in the last class. Also, the VB application is all about the Oracle Jet component. So in order to build your UI, you have to use the inbuilt Oracle Jet component. So you can simply search Oracle Jet and you will see the Oracle Java extension toolkit. So this is the open source technology which is used to build user interfaces. So all these components are of the Oracle Jet components, like we have the HTML components to build user interfaces. So you simply drag and drop the component on this page and then your application UI will be created. This is the structure of the page. Once you will start putting the components here, the structure will be populated automatically. You can also edit the structure directly here. So this is your page designer. If you go to the actions, we have the action chains, which is nothing. It is the action. So this action chain is contains the logic of your events. Let's suppose you have a button on the page. On the page, you want to call any external API, and basis on the response of the external API, you want to take different decisions. Okay. So first you will create a button here and then you will register one event, and once you will register an event, an action chain will be created automatically and which will be visible here. I will come to that once we will start creating the events. Okay, and then event listeners, this is all about the events. I will come to that. So you can register the event listener. I will show you that one. You can register, you can create custom events here, the types and then variables. You can create custom types. Let's suppose you can create custom types here, the object types and then array type. I will come to that as well. Similarly, if you want to create variables, you can create variables from this screen. If you want to create a JavaScript, you can do that too for a particular page. So every page has a JSON file. Once you will start putting the component, this JSON will be populated, and if you want to update that JSON file, you have a access of it and you can directly update the JSON file. And then we have the settings as well of the page. You can change the page title, you can provide a description, and you can provide the default flow as well. As of now, we don't have any. Similarly, if you click on this flow, we do have a similar kind of tabs here as we have on the main start. So I mean, whatever you create at the page level, that will be a page scope. If you create few things at the flow level, that will be a flow scope, and these artifacts which you create at the flow level, you can use in any one of the pages. Similarly, if you click on this, you will have each and everything here too. Whatever artifacts you create at the application level will be visible at the flow as well as the pages. So this is your application scope. Let's return back to the main start page. Go to the page designer. Now here, so there are three modes of the UI. One is the design. You can drag and drop the UI components here and it will be visible. You have the code. So when you will start putting your components here, the code will be generated automatically and it's the editable view. You can directly update the code as well. The live shows the application in the live mode and it is the interactive one. Whatever actions you define, you can take an action using that live mode. So the application will be visible as similar as end user can see the application. It is for just like a testing one. Now, so there are few other as well. We will look at that later. Now I am going to execute one use case here. So last time we have created one business object as an employee. So let's try to use this employee business object and try to fetch all the data. Let's try to put that data in a table on the page. Let's see how we can do this. Go to this web application and open this main start page and let's try to search our table component. So you can search a table component and you can drag and drop a table component on this page. So when you will drag, guys, 1 minute. When you will drop the component, when you will drop the table component on the page, it will be visible like this. And here you have to associate this table component with any data source. Data source can be a business object. It can be your service connection. Since we already have one business object as an employee, so let's try to connect this table with the business object. Let's see how to do this. So once you will drag and drop a table, so the properties will be opened. You can see the general, you can see the data, you can see the events, you can see all, you can see the quick start. Notice one thing, we don't have any type, we don't have any variable here. So let's try to use this quick start menu tab. So when you will drop the table, this quick start will be here in the properties palette, which will give you an option add data. Add data is an option which will allow you to bind a table with any data source. Data source can be any employee, it can be any business object, it can be any service connection, it can be a process too. So click on this add data. Once you will click on the add data, it will open one dialog box and it will list all the data sources which is available in your business object, which is available in your web application or in your application actually. Here you see we have the employees business object or we have the opportunity as well. Whatever business object you want to use, you can use that. Use this employee one and then click on the next button. When you click on the next button, it will, here you see the response. So this is your JSON response. So which means when you are trying to business objects on a table on any component, it will use the REST APIs automatically. So the interaction between web application and the business object will happen via the exposed REST API, which we have discussed last time. So whatever components, whatever columns you wanted to show on the table, you can simply search it, select ID. Here you see ID. Let's say first name, let's say last name, let's say full name, let's say email address, let's say age, and let's say qualification. And next, and then finish. So here what will happen? The table will be populated automatically with the data which you have in the employee business object. And now if you go to the code section, the code has been generated. It is the div section. Then you have the OJ table and you see the class, you see the data, the attribute of the table component. Similarly, we have the columns as well. Here you see page.variables.employee list STP, which you can see in the data. Here you see page.variables.employee list STP, which means one variable has been created with name employee list STP. Here you can see variables, employee list STP. SDP stands for service data provider. And first it will create a type from your business object, and then it will create with the service data provider, it will create a variable of a service data provider, and the table will be associated with the same variable. And here, whatever column you have taken, it will be visible here. So this heading, the header of the table, is the user-friendly name of the business objects field. If you want to update any one of the header, you simply double click here. You can say employee ID like this. So everything is here. Now, if you want to add more column on this table, you can simply click here. And as of now, I don't have it. But whatever columns we have selected on this add data dialog box, it will be added onto your types. Here you can see. If you want to add more, you can click on this edit from the endpoint, and this wizard will be opened, and you can have, let's say, created by, and then finish. And now you can go to the page designer, go to this data, and now you will have this created by here. You see, created by has been added. If you don't want to show this, you can simply remove it. Similarly, you have the code as well. If you want to delete any one of the column, you can simply remove one JSON object from here. So this is how you can show the data on a table component from any business objects. Now, this is how you can fetch all the data. Now I want to create another page which will allow me to insert the data into this business object. So how we can do this? So select this table, go to this quick start, and once your add data will be configured, then all these below options will be enabled only. Now click on this add create page. So click on this add create page. Again, it will open the same data sources. I will select the business object as an employee, and then next. Similarly, it's a request. Now when you will try to create, it will be a request. So it is showing as a request. So whatever you want to take, you can take, let's say, first name, last name, email address, age, and let's say qualification, because full name will be populated automatically. And there will be a button will be created. By default, it will take the caption as a create employee. If you want to change it, you can change it. The page title, create employee, and the page, one page will be created in the main flow, and the name will be main hyphen create hyphen employee. If you want to update it, you can update it. Finish. Here, if you go on this structure, you can see the main hyphen create hyphen employee has been created here. If you open this page, you can see the structure of this page, that the page has been created automatically with input boxes, and then two button cancel and then save. So once you click on once you will start filling the form and save it, the data will be inserted into the employee business object. Now, if you want to update, here you see the create employee button. Okay. Now, if you want to update any one of the record, you can do that too. Again, go to the quick start, and you can create another page called add edit page. Simply click here, then same dialog box will be opened, and then click any one of the, so I want to update in the employee business object. So I will choose that employee. Next, select update endpoint, again employee, and then page details. I want to update first name, last name, email address, age, and then qualification. Then similarly, edit employee page title, and then page name will be created. Finish. Here you see edit employee button, and here you can see this main edit employee page has been created automatically. Again, you can create a delete action as well. If you want to delete any employee, you can do that too. Add delete action from where you want to delete the data, from the business object employee, and finish. Here you go, delete employee has also been created, and you see within a 5 or 10 minutes we have created a web application. Now, how to run this application means how to preview this application. My application is in the development phase. So you just simply click on this preview icon. So this, once you click on this preview icon, it will open in a new tab. Open here, or you can simply go to the live mode and you can interact with the application here as you do in the new tab too. Okay. So here you can see all the data. You can click on a create employee to create a new employee. If you cancel it, you will go back on the previous page, create employee, and here you can, let's say, Nikhil. Here you see enter an email address. Why? It is because you should have the email address in a proper format, otherwise it will throw an error. It is because we have taken the employee address field as a employee address data type. Okay, then age, if you will say 15, then again it will throw an error because we have a restriction. We have created one field validator, let's say MBA. If you try to save it, it should throw an error. Here you see age must be between 18 to 16. Similarly for the email address too, let's say 32, and then save. Here you see you will get one confirmation message as well. Employee record has been saved and your table will be updated automatically. If you go back, if you go to the employee business object, here you can see the data has been inserted and the full name has also been populated automatically because we have one uh, uh, we have the value calculation here. Similarly, if you want to update any employee, you simply select it. All these buttons will be enabled. You can click on edit employee, the email address, let's say Jatin at yahoo.com. Save. Here we go. You can see the updated data is here. Similarly, if you want to delete it, you can simply select it and you can delete the employee. The employee has been deleted. You can refresh this and from here, the record has been deleted. So you see how simply we can create a simple web application and how quick it is. Any question, anyone on this?
Can we create messages like employees created once created that employee name as that is created
Yes.
like that, or
Yes.
employee deleted if it is some
I
specific.
will come to that. How we can do this. This is all about the declarative approach, means using the wizard option. But all these things which has been created by the wizard, you can create a form manually to, and you can provide the buttons to save the records, and before you want to save, you can do some validations too as well via the action chain. And here you see the actions, few actions chain has been created automatically, few events has been created automatically. You see navigate to create, delete employee chain, all these has been created automatically. The items, variables, similarly you will have the edit employee. We have few action chains has been created automatically, events, types, and then variables. But yes, you can create the customs as well. I will come to that. Any question, anyone on this?
No.
Good. Now,
Ankur, if we want to add like a list of values for any particular field,
yes,
so how?
I will come to that. Yes, that's a good question. Now, before I answer this, let me just execute other use cases as well. Okay, so now we have the employee business object, and now I want to create another business object which will have the address of the employees. So I will create another business object address and then click on a create button. I want to add a few fields here. Let's say address one. The data type will be string. I will create another field, address 2. I will create country. I will create state here. I will create zip code. It will be open integer type, and then I will create, because the address will be associated with the employee, so I will create a employee ID field here. And this employee ID will be a foreign key. So if you want to create a relationship between two business objects, here we go, we have one data type called reference, and it will show the business object, let's say employee, and then display field. You can see, you can show, you can take any fields, but the primary ID will be the ID only, which means the foreign key will be created using the primary ID. But what display field you want to show? If you want to show the employee email address, you can do that too. Let's say first name and then create. So here we have created the address. Now go to the data and let's try to add some data here. Click on a plus row and let's say 23245 India employee. Here you see employee ID, because we do have the, here you see Ankur, because we have taken the display name as a Ankur only, so it is showing all the names here. But you see, for all the employees, we have the employee IDs too. So you say Ankur, this address will be associated with the Ankur. You can say Delhi, say 110032. You can keep adding more addresses here. Employee ID, again, I will say this is associated with Ankur. You can say Delhi, you can say India. Okay, you can add one more row here. Let's say so I will say this address is associated with Nikhil, and I will say Mumbai, UP. Okay, and here you see employee ID. So this is called your display field. So it is representing, but it is representing, so this address is associated with Ankur, this is also is associated with Ankur, and this address is associated with Nikhil. Now what I'm going to do, again, here you see we have this main start page. Okay, go to the page designer. Now when I will select a particular row, I want to populate, I want to fetch all the address of a Ankur and will show to another table. So for this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a heading here. Okay, and here we'll say address of an employee. Okay, I have just drag and drop the heading, and you can change the label if you want, like this. Okay, now I will put another table component here. Now I want to associate this table with which business object? Address. So I will select this table and then click on a add data. So I will choose address here, and then next, and all the fields will be visible here. Let's say address 1, address 2, let's say country, let's say state, and then zip code. Okay, and then next, here you see when you try to add the data, you have this filters as well. Let's say you have the filter criteria, which means before you populate the data on the table, you want to filter some data. So how you can do this? You see the filter criterion, which will be added automatically. So what I want to add just select it, and here I want to add a condition, and will say initially I don't want to populate the table. I want to populate the table only when our user select a particular employee. So here we can select this filter criteria. We can select the we can add the condition here, and I will say if employee ID. You can select the operators. We have multiple operators. Let's say equals, and you can provide any junk value. Let's say 000, which means if employee ID equals to 000, then only fetch the data initially. But we don't have any employee ID which is 000, which means the data will not be fetched and the table will not be populated. Here we go. We don't have any data here. When I select a table component, then only I want to populate that. So for this, I have to register one event on this table component. So how to register an event and how to create the action chain. So select this table component and go to the events. So by default, one event is already there, because when you select this here, you see, when you select this, we do have the edit employee, because it is happening via this event only. So it has been generated automatically when we have configured this table. But we will generate another event. Let's select this table, and in order to generate our event, click on this plus event, and here we have a multiple events on the table component. First selected row, selected, OJ before row edit, OJ before row edit, end. So let's use this first selected row. Once you click on it, a register will be generated, and it will generate one action chain too. Here you see we have four only as of now. So once you click on it, the count will be increased and it will show the 5, which means one action chain will be generated. Here you see 5, and the action chain name is table first selected row chain chain. If you go to this, you see this action chain has been generated. You can click here, and here you will be landed onto the designer of the action chain. As I mentioned earlier, the action chain is nothing. It is the response of your event. It is the collection of a different actions which you want to perform on an event. So here we have a lot of actions which we can drag and drop here to execute any action. Let's suppose you want to call a JavaScript. You can do that too. Let's suppose you want to call any external API. You can do that too. Let's suppose you want to do the for each. You can do that too. You want to put some condition. You can do that too. Here we have a different actions. We will start putting few components here first. And here when you will generate, okay, let's go to the page designer. And here you see we have registered this action first selected row event, and the action chain name is this. And when you register any event, it will have certain parameters automatically, like row key and then row data. But if you generate another, let's say selected and other events, so it will have their own input parameters. So these input parameters are very useful. So one is the row key for the table, and another is row data. Row key will hold the primary key of a particular row, and row data is an object which will contains the row data. Refresh it here. Okay, so we can use both the things. So you can click here. Now action chain. Now there's a assign variables action here. You can drag and drop here. Assign variable action is nothing, is to assign the variables value. So how to use that? Select this assign variable. Here you see assign variables. The ID will be generated automatically. If you want to change it, you can change it. Label, description, and here you see assign. If you click on a assign here, this assign variables dialog box will be opened, which will have the source tree, which will have the target tree. It will have all kind of data sources. So whatever fields you want to map, you can do that, as we do in the mapper, in the integration. Here we have employee list SDP, we have the address list SDP. Address list SDP is associated with your table with address table, and employee list SDP is associated with your employee table. So I want to refresh this table. So I will add the filter criteria here again, because I want to update that filter criteria which I have added while configuring the address table. So select this and click to add condition. Similarly, I will use this employee ID field. I will use the operator equal. And here you see we have the row key. Row key will hold the row, the primary key of a particular row. So here you can select the row key. So now employee ID equals employee key. And the employee ID, which is the user ID, will go into the employee ID and will be fired in your address table. Just save. Now we are done. Go back to the page designer. Let's try to run this again and see what will happen. Right? Let's select this. Here you see. We don't have any table for the Nikki. We do have one for Nikhil Anand. Sachin Kumar, we don't have anything. Make sense, guys? Any question, anyone? I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's try another use case, which will be the dependent list of values. First, let's see how to create the list of values. So list of values, you understand the drop down, I mean. So first let's try to create a page and let's say drop down. Click on a create. Here you see the page has been created. You have the components palette here, and there's a component called select one. Here we have a select single, we have the select one, we have the select many. Select single, select one is the earlier component which has been deprecated. Now for okay, and for the new release you need to use the select single. So drag and drop this select single component here. Okay, and before I move forward, I wanted to show you which version we are using. If you want to see which VB version we are using, you just click here and then click on this about. You will it will show you 21.04.2. This is the VB version which we are using now. Okay, now select this component. Now I want to populate this component with my business object data. Here you see the label hint. If you want to update it, you can update it. Go to the quick start. Similar to that, click on this add options. And now I want to populate this with my employees' email addresses. Click employee. Next. And here I wanted to use the email address as the label and the value as a ID field. I can say here employee email addresses. Next, and then if you go to the live mode, you can see the employees. Here we do have null. Let me see. Yeah. So let me just update the records directly from here. Okay, let's run it again. Okay, here one thing, when you will preview this application, it will open the main start page, because main start page is the default page. How you can update that? Let's suppose you want to run this page when you run this application, so you can update the default pages as well. So click on the flow, go to the settings, and here you see the default page. Default page is main start. If you want to update it, you can do that. Let's say drop down and then preview. Now the drop down page will be open. Here you see all the employees' email addresses are visible here. Now go back. So placeholder has not been updated. The placeholder you can change here. You can remove this label hint. You can say employee email addresses. Okay. Now I want to have another table, another list of values where I want to show the zip code of a email address of a particular employee. Click on add options. I want to use the address. Next, and here I want to show the label as the zip code and the value will be the ID. Similar to the parent-child relationship table, you have to add a filter criteria because you don't need to populate it. But if you don't add it, it will show all the zip code. So let's skip that step for the time being and then finish. Now go to the live and you can see all the zip code here. Okay, let it be. Go to the design and then click on this, and now I will register one event here and new event, and then there's a event called value item. If you click here, this is having data, key, and then metadata. Data will have the all the data which we have selected while configuring the employee address list of values. Similarly, I will use the assign variables here. Click on the assign and then register on this employee list SDP, filter criteria, click to add condition, and here employee ID equals, and here we have the key. Key will hold the unique key. Fine. Now you can run it and we'll see. Initially, it will show here we go. But let me just run that and we'll see. Initially, it is not showing anything. It is because why it is not showing anything when you will run it. We have registered the value item event on this employee address, okay, and it will be fired, and we have not selected anything, so employee ID will go as a null, hence it is not populating anything. Now if you select it, you will see the values here. Guys, make sense?
Yes, okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, any question on this?
Ankur, is it possible to change the code label like SQL joining the data models that we created? can we like do any modification to that?
Where you want to do the modification?
Modification in the sense like the joining we have done like in the drag and drop, and in the back side like the code level, if we want to do any changes, like let's say like there must be a join condition inside, and there we want to have some where clause or something conditions we can directly add. So is it possible like that?
So okay, so when you use here, okay, so you are saying that joining between two business objects, right?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, so how it works is, so first you have to create a relationship here. Let's suppose you want to get, okay, let's suppose you have one as an employee, and in an employee, okay, let's say address. In the address you have the countries. Okay, so instead of having the country value here, you have another business object called country, and you want to populate the country from that business object instead of having it. So you want, what you will do, you will create another country business object here like this. Okay, and here you will say country name. And now let's say data here, let's say India, let's say US. Okay, now let's say this is my one business object which is holding the foundational data, I can say, and I want to populate the country from here only. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to here, I will remove that field from here now. So I will say remove that field. I hope I cannot remove that. Sorry, delete. Okay, deleted. And let's say country. What I will do, reference country, and then let's say country name 5. So when I will insert the data here, then I have to select the country from my business object. Fine. And go to this page now. Main start. Okay, let's delete this one. Okay. This has been deleted now. Now let's drop this table again. Go to the add data, select the address, next, and here I will say address 1, address 2. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to select my country name from here. This is your joining actually. Here you see country object is there automatically.
Yes.
And country name will be visible. Okay. And then state and zip code. Here you see India, India, US. So joining will happen automatically when you create the reference keys. So now this table is populated from two different business objects. I hope that was your question only.
Yes, but can you go to the code and show like how it has become?
No. So code will not show anything to you, because every interaction between the UI component and the business object is happening via the REST APIs, and it will be handled by the REST APIs only.
Okay. Okay. Got you.
Okay. Now another thing I want to talk about the scopes. How scopes work actually. So as I mentioned, we have the top level, which is your application. We have the flow scope. We have the page scope also. So whatever artifacts you create at the application level, let's say variable. If you want to create a variable, click on the plus variable. You can create a variable, let's say application scope variable. And let's say the string create. So this variable which we have created here, it will be visible at the main flow as well as the page, as well as in the admin flow too, and corresponding pages. When you create a variable, you will see the different properties. You can create the default values of it as well. Let's say application variable. We can provide the default value too. Similarly, if you create anything at the flow level, so this is your flow level. Let's say variable here, you can create a variable. You can say flow scope var create, and here you can say flow variable value. Similarly, if you go to this start page, you can create a variable here plus variable, and let's say page scope var. You can say here default value as page value var. Now I have created this page scope variable in this page. If I go to this another page, let's try to fetch our data from the different, let's say heading. Okay. If you want to bind this heading component with any one of the variable which we have created at anywhere, click on this and we have the text property of it. You click on this and here you see the page scope, flow scope, and then application scope. Flow scope variable is visible here because we have created the variable here. Similarly, the application scope variable is also here. You see app variable. Similarly, if you drag and drop another, you can see the flow scope variable is here as well. So but if you drag and drop the heading component, you will not see that variable which we have created main hyphen start, because this scope, the variable which we have created, it is inside this page, and the limitation or the lifetime of this variable will be till main start page. Okay. Similarly, if I go to another flow, let's say put a heading component here, and let's say the flow variable which we have created here, we can't access it because we have defined here only. But app scope variable is visible because we have created this variable at the application level. So this is how your variable scoping works. Make sense, guys?
Yes, like
Yes, Ankur.
local and global variables.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Now let's move forward And let's try to call the external APIs. You may have a requirement to call the external APIs on the pages. So let me have one JSON placeholder API, let's say user1. So I want to fetch the user's data from this external API on my VB application. How we can do this? So as I mentioned, we have one component called service connection. Service connection are used to call any type of external API we have. So you have to create a service connection. Click on this plus service connection and you will have three different options. One is select from catalog. So this catalog feature is used for the backends which we have added here. You have seen earlier, right? So all the backend will be visible here, and under that backend, whatever REST APIs you have, you will have the access of it. Defined by specification. I will surely show these options as well. This is very, very important. Defined by specification, if you have a open API or the Swagger API, you can directly make a connection with those APIs as well. Most importantly, defined by endpoint. Defined by endpoint is used when you know the endpoint of the REST API. So yes, I know the REST endpoint of the API. So let's use this defined by endpoint. When you choose this, you will see this create service connection option. You have the method, which type of API you want to call, the get API, put, post, delete option, whatever. And here you have to put the URL. So URL of your REST API. Put it here. Or you can select the URL from the existing backends as well. But I want to use my own one. Users, and here you see the get many, whatever. This is a hint like get many, create, update, delete. So this will fetch multiple data. So I will use the get many. Click next. When you do this, so this is your base URL. So that will be grayed out automatically. And then you can change it if you want it. So one server will be added with this URL. So this is just like a REST connection we create in the integration with the external APIs. So this is here also the server will be added with this particular URL. The service name will be added based on that URL, the title, the version, and then description. Server, here you see the server has been added with this URL. Description, application profiles. By default, one application profile will be created. If you want to create an application profile, you can do that. I will explain it later. The headers, if you want to add any custom headers, you can do that. Authentication. If this API is secured and here you need to pass any basic authentication or the auth, you can add that one, and then accordingly you have to add the credentials here. If you click edit, you can use username and then password. Like we create a REST connection in the integration and we supply the credentials. Similarly, you have to provide this as well. Since this API is open, so I will use no. Connection type. Dynamic, the service support course. Dynamic, the service does not support course. Always use proxy. So we'll use this dynamic. So every REST connection, every service connection we use, you have to use at least one connection type. So we have one proxy, we have one VB proxy, Visual Builder proxy. So VB, when you choose this dynamic, the service does not support course. So it totally depends on the external API. If the external API support course, then you have to use this dynamic, the service support course, and then the request will go via the VB proxy automatically, which means another layer, another security layer will be added, which obviously will add some time to create a connection with VB and then external application, because it has some wide listing here. But if your external API does not support any course, so which means it is open to anyone can call it. So you will use this service does not support CORS. But if you want to always use proxy irrespective of the CORS support, which means you want to use the VB proxy irrespective the CORS is enabled or not, then you can use it. So in this case, what will happen? Your connection between VB application and this will be always secured because there's a proxy layer will be added. But I will use this dynamic, the service does not support CORS, and then operation. Get users, here it will be added automatically. Request parameters header, if you want to add any request parameter, you can do that too, like add dynamic query parameter or the static. Static means you can add any parameter and then value which will always be passed in the request. If you want to add dynamic query parameter, if this request take any request parameter, you can add that too. But if you want to add template parameter, you have to add something like this, let's say ID, and this will be added here as a path parameter. Now response and then go to test. So here you see, click on the send request. When you click on a send request, a connection will be established with your REST API and it will fetch the data. Now you can click on the save example response. It is mandatory. If you will not add it, the sample schema will not be created. You remember when we use the REST connection in the integration, we have to provide the sample schema. Similarly here, we have to give instruction to the service connection that the data will come in this particular format. If you want to reduce it, you can reduce it, but don't forget to click on a save as example response. Click here and then click on a create button. Here you see the connection has been added here. Go to the servers. Here it will show you the server which we have added. If you want to update that server detail, you can do that too. Here you see the endpoint. One endpoint has been added /user. If you want to add more one, you can do that too. Let's say I want to add this one, which will allow me to get the databases on an ID. You can do that too. So in the same server, you can click on the add endpoint. Here you see server is already there. You can say users and then user ID. Request. Here you see the path parameter has been added. Go to the test one and then here you see send request and then save as example response and then add. Here you see another endpoint has been added to the same server. Okay, this is how you can add more and more endpoints. So let's try to use this users API to show the data on my table. Let me just create another page plus and let's say users data and then click on a create button. Similarly, I will use the table component and I will use add data. So now instead of using the business object, here it will show the JSON placeholder type code in individual endpoint and I will use this users one next. So here you see the structure has been populated here. So this response, this structure will be populated only when you select the save as example response. Otherwise, it will not show. So let's say email, name, phone, username, and then website I want to show. Here you can see all the data of the users has been populated from your external REST API. Any question? I hope it is clear to everyone. Guys, I am audible.
Yeah, yes, Ankur. That's fine.
Okay. So you can call any number of external API using the service connection. Now, I wanted to show you if you have any REST API in the integration which you wanted to call. So we have lots of REST APIs here. So let's say yeah, we have that REST API, okay, which we wanted to call. Or we have another API. So the use case is, let's suppose you have one database system, the on-premise database, which you have a few tables in your database, and you have some information which you wanted to show on your table. So as you know, we have the visual builder which is on the cloud. You cannot connect your visual builder with the database directly. So what you have to do, you have to first create a REST API here. Whatever response you wanted to show on this table, you can get the response here on this REST API, and then use the database adapter, install the connectivity agent, make a connectivity, create a REST API here. Whatever data you want to get it here. And then via the service connection, you can call the REST APIs. So we have, let's suppose we have this FTP REST API, okay? We have a lot of things, ATP operations, let's say. So let's try to call these APIs from my service connection. So go to the service connection and let's register the service connection from the catalog feature. So the catalog, whatever backends we have added, it will be visible. Here you see we have added the Oracle Cloud application, sales and service, human capital, and then enterprise. We have the integration application. So this will be only visible if we have the backend of the integration, this one. Otherwise, that catalog will not be visible. I mean integration catalog. So this catalog is coming from this one. The Oracle Cloud one is coming from this one. Process data will come from this catalog. Here, service connections, here service connection, and go to the catalog integrations. So here you see it is pointing to the same instance, OCI dev 01, OCI dev 01. Okay, and it will show you all the endpoints, the REST endpoints. It will not show another endpoint. It will show only the REST endpoints which we have created. Default package, here you can see I wanted to call this one. We have, let's say, this one. Okay, create. Here you see everything has been added. All the endpoints has been added here. We have the get many, we have the get one, update, delete, and then post. Whatever you want, you can do that. So let's try to create another page here. Fetch employee data. So I am interacting with my ATP now. Okay. So again, I will put a table component, add data, and here, which one I will use this one, ICS default package. The ICS is a service connection which has been added here. You can see ICS. Okay. Now you can see all the fields. You can say primary ID is the ID. Whatever data you have in your ATP, it will be visible here. Or we don't have any data, is it?
I think the database might not be on.
Huh?
Database, you need to start the database. I think.
It's not up, is it? Just hold on, please.
You can select from the hamburger Oracle database. Then
No, this is here, I guess. Yeah. Oh, I hope I am using that one, right? Stopped. Let me see which one we are using here. Yeah, we are using the same. Let me start it. Okay. In meanwhile, oh, it's visible now. Means this has been started, is it? So we have only single record. Yeah. So here you cannot see, but you can see the connection has been created. Now, if you want to add a new employee, you can do that too. So let me just create a page. So before I do this, let me just create a page here manually. Let's say add employee. ATP, okay. So I will create a form here, okay. Form layout, you can say here. And here I will say input number, then input number one more time. I'll say input text, input text. I'll say another input text. I'll say email address. And I will say qualification. So I hope we have a qualification here too. Yeah, we have a qualification here too. So here I will say select one choice. And someone was asking how to use this select one, how to populate with the business object. So here I will say qualification. Fields. Here I'll say qualification. Oh, sorry. Yeah, qualification. And then create field. Add the data. Let's say MCA, MBA. Let's say BBA. Let's say BCA. Fine. And go here and I will associate this with my qualification. I will say label will also be the same. and then value will be the same. Finish. You go to the live mode, you can see this has been populated. Go to the code and go to the general. Here I will change it, and here I will say this is my select employee. Okay, and then I will say employee ID. Enter employee ID. I'll say employee age. You can say here employee, you can say first name, you can say last name, you can say email address, select employee. Fine, now my form is ready. Now once I will have one button here, two buttons actually. One is a cancel and the second as a save. So I will make this as a cancel and this will as a submit or a save. You can change the chromating from here. Let's say you want to make it solid. Here you can say, if you want to let it be, you can change small, large, F large, confirm, whatever you want. So what I want here, let me see. It is not started. Oh, it stopped. Why? But how the data is fetched here? Why it has been stopped? But no worries, I can show you something. Okay, now on the save button, I want to call my post API, which I have created here. So go to the save. Okay, before I do this, I have to bind the fields with these so that I can call the service here and then pass the records. So for this, I will create one type. Create type from my endpoint, the endpoint which I have registered here. And it will be from the service. It will be from my this post operation. Next, and here in the request, I will select everything. So create employees, one endpoint, one data type will be created with name create employees, which will have all the fields. But you can create a data type manually with all these fields. But I am doing it from endpoint so that the same name can be fetched. I will create a variable here with that type. I will say employee where, and the type I will select this as a create employees. Go to this page. Now it has been fetched. I don't know what is happening. Go to this page and employee ID, go to the data, and I will bind this with my ID field. Employee age, I will bind this with my age field. Last name, I will bind with last name field. First name, I will bind with first name. Email address, I will bind with email address. Similarly, I will bind this value field my which one? Qualification. Now on the save button, I want to call the post endpoint. So click on the save, go to the events, and here I will generate one OJ action. So on the button component, I have a OJ action. Now, if you want to call any REST endpoint, whether it's your service connection endpoint or your business object, we have one action called call REST. So drag and drop here, and here initially the ID will be call rest. Click here and click on the select. So it will open all the endpoints of the business objects as well as the services, means the service connections. ICS default package, and I want to call my post, select and then select. Here you see create employees ID has been changed. Now here I need to pass the body. So here you see it takes the body, click on assign, and this employee where has the same body structure. So simply pass it here and then save. Now I want to show the notification. So for the notification inline, we have this fire notification. So two paths will be generated, success and then failure. We already have the fire notification added here with the default summary. On the success path, I have dropped the fire notification. You can summary, you can say here, you can take the first name from here. Someone was asking how to print the first name. And here you can say employee has been created and then plus symbol to concatenate two values. Okay, here we have the display mode. It can be persist, it can be transient. If it is persist, you have to close the pop-up manually. The transient, the pop-up will be closed automatically. The type of notification, it can be any type. Let's say confirmation, the target. Okay, so employee will be created automatically. Now go back to the page designer. On the cancel, I want to go back to this particular main fetch employee data. So click on a cancel. I will register one event OJ action. And here again, so for this, I have one action called navigate back, which means navigate back action will take you to the previous page from where you have landed onto this page automatically. Go to this main fetch data employee, and here I will add a button. Let's say button on top of this table, and let's say create employee. Started or not? Yeah, it started now. Here you see we have only single records, which is being fetched on this particular table. Okay. So create employee. Now, when I will click on a create employee, it should show, it should take me to this particular page. So I will generate one event here, OJ action. And we have one action called navigate, which will allow me to navigate to another page. Drag and drop. And here it will say target, and it will give me all the list of pages, which is the add employee ATP. Okay, now I am done. Let's change the default page of it. Go to the main, go to the settings, and here I will say this is my fetch employee data. Let's see. Okay, here you can see the data. Click on a create employee, and now let's say you have to generate a unique. Let's say 324 Jan and employee MCA and then save. Employee has been created Ankur, and if you go to the database, here you see Ankur has been added. And let's suppose on, and if you click on a cancel, you will be landed here on this page, and the data will be visible also, because it will refresh the page again. So this is how you can interact with your integration in the Visual Builder. Any question? I hope it's clear.
Yes, Ankit.
I hope few points has been cleared, how to show the name, how to use the qualification drop down to show the qualification.
Yes, Uncle.
Yes, Ankit.
Fine. So moving forward, here you see we have created a page here. This one. This one. Now, before I click on a submit, I want to validate this page, and I want to say, I want to make sure the required field should be entered. So how to make the validation? So for this, what I'm going to do, I am first selecting all the input components one by one and make them required. So required, here you see change required, 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 address required, first name required. So by making all these field required, it will, when you click on a save button, it will not enforce the required actually. So it is just making them required. We have to make a JavaScript to check the form is valid or not. So for this, first go to the code section, and here this form layout I need to just enclose with my OJ validator, validation group, and I will say ID equals to my employee form. I'm enclosing this form layout with this OJ validation group, and here I will go. I am coming to this page. I am going to the JavaScript, and I have to add a JavaScript. And how to add JavaScript on a page? Here you see the page module. We have to like page module dot prototype and then function name. Let's say validate form, for example, and then function. If you have any argument, you can provide the argument. Let's say form ID, and then something like this. You can return whatever you want to return, true or false. So such kind of JavaScript. So this is how you can write the JavaScript. If you are writing the JavaScript at the page level, you have to use the page module. If you are writing the JavaScript at the flow level, then here you have to use the flow module dot prototype. Similarly, at the application level, you have to use that app module. Okay, going back, and there's a proper code. Just let me just take a code from somewhere. Allow me a minute, please. Okay, so after that, I am adding a code like this. So document dot get element by ID and then form ID. Okay, so here I am adding a code. I am just getting the form using that get employee ID method and checking if it is valid, then return true, else it will show the message and return false. So go to the action and not this one, that is the button action chain. So before I call the REST endpoint, I will make a condition if here, and I will drag and drop here. And in the if, I am putting a condition, this one, page dot functions dot validate form. And here I will have to pass my form ID, which is my employee form. Go to this action, and here I am just adding this one. This one, okay, my employee form. So this is the condition which I have added here. So how I have added it here? So two curly braces, then page, because I have added the JavaScript at the page level, then functions dot function name. What is my function name? Validate form only. So make sure this is the validate form name, and then here I am passing the form ID. Okay, and then just closing that. If it will return true, then it will go to this path, otherwise it will go to the false. Now let's try to run this page again. What happened again? This database is down here. It's up. But anyways, let's create. Okay, it might be because I have, but no problem. Let's try to save it. And here you see enter a value, enter a value. So this is enforcing my JavaScript client validation. So let's try to 6. Here you say 1, 2. Here it, I hope it will throw an error. I don't know what happened to this database, why it is not working. But the data has not been saved. It should throw an error. Go to the monitoring, integration. You can see ATP operations, received, in progress. You see here, there might be some issues with the database, hence it is not allowing me. Service unavailable. There are some issues, but fine. Guys, I hope you understand how to create the JavaScript validation and all.
Yes, sir.
It's easy, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Ankur, we need to write only JavaScript for validation. Any other issues are there?
Santosh, what are you saying?
For validation, we need to write JavaScript only.
Yes, yes. Santosh, you were asking how to enable logs. Here you see we have logs here, right? You have to click on a logs and you have to click on a enable logging, and the business objects log will be visible here. Earlier there was some bug, hence the logs were not there in the earlier release. Now you can try to view the logs here, but you have to click logs and then enable logging, refresh, and you can see the logs here of the business objects. Make sense? Now, are you seeing something?
Ankur, can you explain once again the JavaScript part, please,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't mind?
No problem, no problem. Go here, open this one. So it's very simple. So in order to create any JavaScript, how it looks like. So this is the page module. So this is the inbuilt variable. You have to use the page module dot function. Sorry, the prototype. Then any name of the function. Let's say my custom function, and let's say it's a function. You want to add two values. Let's say number 1, comma number 2. And then you can return like this, return number 1 plus number 2. So this is the structure of your JavaScript. So here page module, we have created one function called validate form, where I am expecting the taking the form ID as an input parameter. I am extracting the form ID here and then checking it is valid. If it is valid, then return true simply. Otherwise, it will show an error on all the input text. This is a standard JavaScript function actually. Is this clear now?
Yes, Ankur.
And here, if you go to the JSON, you will see the JSON will be generated automatically for your page. Whatever you register on the page, it will show you here. Now, how to interact with the ERP system? So basically, VB is actually made for the, okay, so before I do this, I wanted to show you one more thing. How to create editable tables in the Visual Builder. So if you have a table, let's say you have this table and you want to allow inline editing in the table so that user can do the updation inline and save the records in your business objects. How you can do this? So for this, let me just create a page here and I will say editable table and click on the create button. So that inline editing feature, you cannot use the service data providers. So which means you cannot the SDP kind of variables which are created automatically to perform the inline editing. So for this, you have to create another type of variable which is called array data provider. So there are two types of variable. One is service data provider and the second is array data provider. The difference between the service data provider and an array data provider is service data providers will be generated automatically when you will use the add data option wizard and it will have the service call, which means when the service data provider will be fired, it will call the service automatically, will fetch the data. And it has various features as well. It will allow you to sort the data automatically. It will allow you to paginate the data and other stuff. However, array data providers, when you need to use array data provider, let's suppose you want to do the inline editing in the table. So such inline editing feature can't be achieved from the service data provider. It can be achieved from array data provider. And if you want to cache the record, then you have to use the array data provider. I will show you how to use these array data providers first. So let me just close all the tabs and we have editable table. So what I'm going to do, first I am going to create one array data provider variable. So for this, I am going to create a type and I will generate a endpoint. I will create a type with from endpoint and it will be from my business object employee, and it will be based on this get employee ID. Whatever fields you want to have, you can have it. Let's say age, email address, first name, full name, ID, and then qualification. Get employee type will be created. Finish. Go to the variable. Let's say employee ADP. And when you select the type here, we have one provider called array data provider, and then create it. On the ADP, you can select the item type. The item type is my get employee. And then when you choose the item, you have to select which one is the key attribute. I'll say ID. And now your employee IDP, employee array data provider has been created. Now I need to populate the data into this employee ADP so that I can use this employee ADP and associate with my employee table. So for this, we have one event here, which is called the life cycle method. So when the page loads, there are different methods which can be called. Go to the event listener. We have one life cycle method called VB enter. So this VB enter is the life cycle method which will be fired automatically when this page will load. So let's suppose you want to perform some actions before your page load. So you can register this VB enter event. This will be fired automatically when this page will load. Next, and with this event, you can associate any action chain at the page level, at the flow level, at the application level, or you can choose the existing action chain. So if you want to create a new one, click on the plus, and here I will say load employee data, and then finish. Here you see action chain has been created and it is associated with my VB enter. Go to action chain. Now what I want to call my employee REST API of the business object. So I will use this call REST action and will select my endpoint. Here, my endpoint is from business object employee, and I will choose this get employee. Right? And then I want to assign the response of this to my ADP variable. So I will use this assign variable and then assign. Okay, here you see the data structure. So call REST get all employee. So this will contain the item. So I will map this item to data. Save. Now, when this event VB enter will be fired, it will call my action chain. It will get all the data and it will map, it will assign the data into my ADP. So my ADP will have the data. Go to the page designer and select the table component from here. And now go to the data. Instead of using that add data, I will use this employee ADP variable. And all the columns will be visible here. Let's say ID, age, email address, first name, last name, and then qualification. Here you can see all the data has been populated from my business object by the ADP approach. So this is one of the important features. Now I want to support the inline editing. So for that, I only want first name and last name to be updated. So for this, what you have to do, I will drag and drop the input text on the columns which I want to enable for the inline editing. Let's say first name or the last name only. I will put that input text here. Similarly, I will do for my last name. When you drag and drop the columns, if you go to the code section, you can see the separate template will be generated automatically for each and every column, on which you drop the input text. Fine. Now here these are the read only, so I have to remove this read only so that I can enable the updation here, right? Go to the design. Now I also want to create another variable which will hold the row which is going to be updated. So for this I am going to create a variable which will be the current update row, and I will select this as a get employee, then create, right? So this variable will hold the row which will enter in the edit mode. Go to the page designer, and here I will have to generate two events. Go to the properties, events, and here we have two events, OJ before row edit. So this event will be fired when the row will go in the edit mode. So click on this, and here I will use the assign variable action and will hold the current row which is going to be updated. Go to the assign, and in the current row, go to the employee ADP, and here I will assign the current row. And I don't need the 0, I need the current row. So I will use the row index here. Row index will hold the current row. Variables dot row index. Okay, and then save it. So what will happen when you enable the inline editing, the current row will be copied in my current updated row. Save. Go back, and then also I have another event called OJ before row edit end, which will be fired when your editing will be finished. So here click on this again, it will generate another action chain. Now I want to update my employee ADP variable with the updated record. So here we have one action which is called my fire data provider event, which will be used to update the variables. So event target which variable you want to update, you can select it from here. I will say employee ADP. Mutate what you want to mutate in this, add, remove, or update. I want to update, so I will use this update one. Update, and simply you can say whatever updated row is there, I will update into my employee ADP variable, and then save. Page designer. I will add one button here which will allow me to update all the records. Once all will be updated, go to the button, generate one event here, OJ action. And here we have for each action which I want to use to loop over the employee ADP variable. Assign, and here I will say this is my employee ADP variable and data, and then save it. And then I will call the REST endpoint here to update the record one by one. So I will select my business object, employee, and then patch. Select. I need to pass the employee ID and then body. So here employee ID will be my current, not this one, employee ID, data, that will be the ID, but that will be my current dot index. So here I will say current dot index. Okay. Save it. Similarly, I have to pass the current body here. So that will be body here, and then here I will use the current dot index. Save. Right, and here you can fire a notification after the end of this loop, and I will say employee updated successfully. Still, there are some other things which I need to do. I need to go to the code, and here I have to apply few conditions here. So here I will say OJ if bind if test. I'll say if current dot mod equals to let me just check, please allow me a minute. Guys, allow me a minute, please. I'm just checking something. There's a code to that. Not current dot mode. No worries. Current data. And then current data. Okay. And similarly, so current dot mode equals to edit. So I am going to do this. Update row to this first name. Okay. And similarly, I will copy the whole thing here. And here I will say this is the last name. Guys, allow me one more minute, please. Let me just check something quickly. I got it. Yeah, it's like navigation. Okay. So here what I have done is in this template, first name template, what happened? Okay, so here I have added one condition here, which is checking if current dot mode equals to navigation. That show the record in the read only mode. Otherwise, if it is in the edit mode, then show the data in the input box so that I can edit it. What is that problem here? Current.mode. That's fine. Now let's try to run this page. Okay. And see what will happen. I will explain it again. Don't worry, guys. This is my editable table. Let's see what will happen. Okay. So in order to update the records in line, what you have to do, you have to double click on the row. And here you can see the input box will be visible. Let's say unknown. Okay. And then you have to click outside to enable the to just come out from the row. Similarly, you can double click on another nickel. Nick. Okay. And you can say this one. Show 3. Right. And then click on this button. Employee updated successfully, maybe some issues. Let me see.
Ankur, can we check the log and see like?
I will do that, yes. Yeah. So let me just open the log. Let me just inspect the data here. And let me just try. It says bad request. Oh, got it. Got it. No. Oh, okay. Okay. It is because you cannot set the full name. Hence, it is the error. So what you can do is from here, you can remove the full name actually. And then try, because full name you cannot update it. Okay. Here you see employee updated successfully now. Here you see the first name has been updated. Now just let me just rephrase the whole thing which I have done. Let me just. So first of all, what I did, I have registered one VB enter event as a lifecycle method, and I have associated one action chain with that, wherein I am calling the REST endpoint to get all the employees and saving into my array data provider variable. On the page designer, what I have done is I have dropped one table here and then associated with this table with the employee ADP variable and have selected all the fields which I want. After this, I have registered two events, one as a OJ before row edit, which will be executed once the row will enter in the edit mode, and second as the OJ before row edit end, which will be fired once your editing will be finished. In this, I have simply assigned the current row into one of the variable which I have created as a current updated row. However, in the second action chain, which is your table before row edit chain, which will be fired when your editing will be finished. So here I am using this fire data provider event. I have selected the employee ADP variable, which I want to update, and I am updating the row with this particular data. After this, I have dropped, I am enabling first name and the last name to update. So for this, what I have done is I have simply mapped input text on the first name on the last name. And then on the code, I have registering two if condition on each and every on the first name as well as on the last name. If my current mode is navigation, then show the data as it is. If it is in the edit mode, then use this current update row variable and then allow in the input text field. Or maybe it's wrong, but that's fine. Okay. And if it is in the edit mode, then show the input text to update the record. Save. And then on the save button, I have registered an event looping over the employee ADP variable and updating the data one by one. And at the end, I am firing a notification to show that data has been updated successfully. So this is how you can enable the update employee feature. So inline editing, sorry, in the table. Guys, any question on this? I am done for today's session. Any question, do let me know.
No, Ankur, I think that last one was some complexities are there. We need to practice this last one.
Yes, I know there are little complexity in inline editing. If you will do this practice yourself, I know that you will be able to crack that one.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So we will meet next Sunday, same time, and I will leave the session for the day. If you have any question, you can ask today or in the next session too. And we most probably we have two more sessions, one for the VBCs, one more session, and then we have one session for the PCS as well. Okay, guys, then with that, I will close the session for the day. We'll upload the recording. You can take it from there and then practice. Guys, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Ankur.
Yeah.
I'm sharing my screen. Please, I'm not able to find logging. Please share. Please enable.
You can share, please.
Sharing.
You see the bottom of the screen. You see the audits, the left hand side, the bottom screen.
Okay. Logs.
Yes. Enable logging. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, man. Then thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.